What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the 100th. I cannot believe I'm about to say that. 100th episode of Till Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, just like we are each and every single Wednesday on or about 5:30 Eastern time. For everybody who is watching at home, watching on YouTube is the best way to interact with the show, where your comments, your questions, your concerns, everything coming in real time. The chat is already fired up. I picked this one from Chris Ferraro at random, but it is the best one so far, only because I always forget to say it. Like the video for 100 episodes. Go ahead and make sure to like the video. John Sapanaro out in Los Angeles, California, and Matt Ibby Ibanez holding it down on the East Coast. Ibby, before we get into plenty of stuff to talk about with our New York Mets, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, John. Very proud. Big day. Last couple of days have been big for the show, but in general, episode 100, very proud of that. The fact that you've been able to deal with me for 100 episodes is incredible. It's crazy to think it's already at number 100. I remember episode 1 like it was yesterday. How many times I repeated the same word over and over again. But you were a pro. You were a pro, and helped me through. And I think the show has grown a lot over the last 100 episodes. Also, big milestone for the show. Super proud of the fact that our goal, I've been saying to you for the longest time, I wanted to hit 20,000 downloads for the show by episode 100. It was a goal that I set forth for us back when we had 7,000 downloads around, early in the process. I said, if we track this properly, I think we can hit 20,000 by episode 100. We did it in 99 episodes, and I'm very proud of that. So overall, pumped up, plenty to talk about. Appreciate everyone that is here right now. Let's talk some Mets, baby.
And of course, what Ibby is talking about is the audio version of our show, which is how this thing started before we ever transcribed this stuff to YouTube, and certainly before we ever went live. And one of our fears when we decided to make this jump and do both was splitting the baby. We said, hey, look, we'll probably get more engagement because people want to interact live, and we want people to be a part of a live stream, but our podcast was, compared to the huge podcasts in the world, modestly successful. But for us, it was doing very well. And so we said, hey, is this really the road that we want to go down? But we are super happy because, honestly, as the engagement has risen on Twitter, as the engagement has risen on YouTube, as the engagement has risen just across the board, it hasn't slowed up on our podcast, which is great to see. I know some people will start listening and then watch the rest, or start watching and then listen to the rest, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes we have people who are active in the chats and they're like, hey, I'll catch the replay or I'll listen to it tomorrow because they're busy during the time that we record that particular week. So, it's turned out to be a really great situation where, we can just kind of almost have a simulcast and give people the access to this show wherever it is they want the access to the show. So we appreciate all that.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is I always get the updates through the emails about, where our numbers rank. And it's crazy that at one point this show did rank 24th overall in terms of baseball podcasts at one point. But the crazy thing, and that's in the US, the crazy thing is I get like all these updates for all these other random countries and places that are listening. And I'm like, how the hell are we ranked in the top 100 overall podcasts? Like right now in Great Britain, we're cleaning up. I have no idea why, but we are cleaning up in Great Britain. It's probably, they all love Sapanaro. They love that he goes out there. He's got a tattoo. Like maybe that's part of it. Our numbers are killed there. At one point, we were like in the top 5 in Italy. We peaked at number 1 in Nicaragua. I have no idea how this stuff works, but it's just awesome. And I'm glad that people are listening to us all over the world. It's great.
It's fantastic. We got to shout out Grant, who said, I just came in here to say hi to John. Hello to Grant. I said last time he was here that we were going to bury the hatchet. And I listen, 100. Honestly, in my mind, we have. In my mind, we have. I don't know if in Grant's mind we have. I mean, we've interacted positively on Twitter in the time since. I've actually followed him on both accounts just to prove to him and to a lot of other people that I'm not just a prick. Sometimes I'm a prick. And wait. Oh, go ahead.
No, the only thing I want to say is we all know John's not a prick. He just gets a little worked up on Twitter. But Grant, you are here. I don't think you were here last time when I asked this question. When you posted that tweet talking about all those Met content creators and shows, and you didn't mention us. Was that done on purpose because you were dealing with John? I have to know. People in the comments back this up on that tweet. I know you're here right now, Grant. I need to know.
All right. Well, Grant did say that yes, indeed, we have buried the hatchet, and honestly, that's a out of nowhere kind of segue for I think this episode, Ibby, because I will speak my mind, and it doesn't always, as will you. And I'm just a little bit more aggressive about it. I understand that. I'm more engaged on Twitter. I have more downtime on my hands than you do. You have 2 kids. I don't have any kids. I spend a lot of times at planes and airport lounges and all this stuff. So listen, I do engage, and I do engage pretty aggressively at times, but I will apologize when I'm wrong. I will admit when I'm wrong. There is a lot of that goes into it. And I stand by everything I said. And I stand by, I put my name on everything. And that's not for everybody, and I understand that. But, you know, Grant saying, it was done just to piss John off. That's all. You guys do a great job. See, and honestly, I respect that. I respect the honesty. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's all I wanted to know. That's
it. Yeah. We have always tried to be as forthcoming and as honest and give our real opinions. Because look, I think honestly, if we did something that was a little bit more shock value based, like the Salicatas of the world, you know, regardless of the platform, look, he's on TV and radio every single day. The guy doesn't need to be shock value. He's already made it. So if we did stuff that was more shock value based, we might have a bigger following, but we don't, because that is not the kind of fans that we are. No. And so with that said, the Mets are in the throes of a very nice stretch, 5-1 since the last time we recorded. Obviously, they did not get the win last night. It was a little bit. It was the Minconi magic, right on cue. Chris Ferraro saying, "Where's Minconi?" I know. Honestly, me and Ibby talked about the fact that if the Mets went undefeated, that we would have to have him on again.
I think we gotta have him back on.
Like literally today, so that we can carry the magic over.
If they won yesterday, and we'll talk about what happened there and everything, but if they had won yesterday, I was gonna say to you, let's just I was gonna screen grab a picture of him from last week's episode, and I was gonna make him look like a magician through Canva, so we can just throw him up here at one spot and just be like, Minconi magic. See, he was there. We're gonna keep carrying that good juju, and hopefully they would have kept winning. But they lost yesterday, so it's whatever. But still, it was great the fact that they went 5-1 since his last time on the show.
Listen, so Ibby, I'll leave it up to you where you want to talk, because look, baseball is an everyday sport, so there is immediacy, there is reactionary, and as much as I disagree with a lot of it, like losing your mind over every single lineup, I understand why that happens, because it is every day. It's not like football where you talk about it on Sunday and you still have the game to talk about on Monday and then on Tuesday and then a little bit on Wednesday as you start to look forward to the next game. You know, baseball is every day. So do you want to start with the negative that was last night, or do you want to start with the positives of the entirety of the week since we last recorded?
I say we talk about the week that was, about the positives. Look, last night, things like nights like that are going to happen, and we can talk about that after the fact. I think it's the overarching theme, if you will, of what the last week was. I think that's what we should be talking about.
Okay, so listen, if we're going to start right there, the Mets, after looking dead in the water, and I don't mean that with regards to the season being over. I mean, the Mets looked like a dead team when we recorded a week ago. Keith Blacknick saying, can't we do both? Yeah, we can do both. We will. But let's lead on the positive, because the Mets have had a really good week last night, notwithstanding. When you don't get good starting pitching and teams make a couple of big misplays and stuff behind you, all of a sudden, you look like a listless team. The Mets certainly had their abilities to tack on some runs and make that game closer. They fell a little bit short, but that's baseball, Susan. But the Mets, after looking dead a week ago, the Mets storm back and take 2 out of 3 from the Rays. Then they sweep the Guardians in impressive fashion, getting 2 very, very, very good performances out of their 2 aces. And Ibby, that's where I want to start if we're going to talk about the positive. Scherzer and Verlander pitching in a doubleheader, 14 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 10 Ks. That is their combined numbers. Verlander gets the win going 8. Scherzer gets the no decision. That was everything the Mets needed from these 2 Hall of Famers. And I tweeted, the rumors of their demise has been greatly exaggerated, because that's the pitchers that we thought we were going to get when we signed them.
At what 1000%. And just I had mentioned I was talking about this in our Facebook group, but I didn't really get a chance to watch that first game with Scherzer because I was down the shore with family for a birthday, so I was just following along, through the radio, on Twitter, whatever. So I didn't get a chance to watch everything. But that second game, watching that and seeing what Verlander did, like that is what we had talked about in the beginning of the season, in the off season, like when we were leading up into the start, how we said, look, older starting pitchers like this, you're not expecting them to go 7-8 finishing games early on or too much throughout the season because you want those bullets saved for a push at the end. But when this team was hurting as much as it was over these up until this point, I'm not even going to say like the last week, 2 weeks, just in general, up until this point so early on in the season where the pen has been exhausted and it's like they need a breather. Justin Verlander goes out there and fires 8 strong innings to put this team in the, with a chance to win a ball game against Shane Bieber, who pitched a fantastic game as well. I know people are going to attack the Mets offense, but Shane Bieber is a damn good pitcher. So
absolutely,
he goes back and forth with him. They're trading zeros here and there, goes out there, dominates a game that was needed. And it's the 8 innings. I can look at the strikeouts. I can look at all the, it's the 8 innings that meant so much. And then obviously Brooks really making that play in the 9th. All in all, that was a fantastic showcase for that team on that stage. Granted, we all know ESPN stinks, but on that stage in general, it was great to see. It was much needed and, definitely a breather that the bullpen desperately needed.
100%. Keith saying the first game was great. City felt alive. And I do agree in part that the Mets certainly over this last, this 5-game win streak that they just came out of, finally look like the team that they were last year. They were a team that never said die. There was a team that got good starting pitching at points, but also they didn't get such great starting pitching at other points, like the Cookie Carrasco game, and they just kept coming back. They just would not be denied, and they continued to build. They continued to tack on runs. Of course, Pete and Lindor right in the thick of it, just like they are every time this team does well. Look, Pete and Lindor are superstar players. I know that makes some section of Mets Twitter upset. I don't understand why. The Mets have one of, and in some ways you can argue, the best shortstop in baseball, right? According to some metrics, you could say he's the best. If he's not the best, he's definitely, top 3, top 5 across the league. Lindor is a legit superstar.
Yes.
Then they also have, and we are watching in real time, and I tweeted about this, we are watching in real time perhaps the best position player / hitter that the Mets have ever developed. That is taking into account Darryl Strawberry. I understand that. I understand how great Straw was, but we all know what happened to Straw's career. We also understand that Strawberry left. Okay. I understand David Wright. We all know how good David Wright is, but that's taking into account, sadly, what happened to David Wright's career with the injuries. And also that's taking into account Jose Reyes. And we also understand what happened with Jose Reyes' career where, once he lost the step, he kind of changed in the type of player that he was. Also, the Wilpons didn't give him the deal that he deserved that would have kept him as a Met through more of his prime. And then maybe we can make a bigger argument there. But Pete Alonso is, I think, Ibby already, and you could argue the ball being juiced, not juiced, whatever. I mean, it's Alonso and Strawberry in terms of the best power hitters that the Mets have ever produced. And I understand that the Mets do not have a rich history of producing offensive talent. So, it's really them at the top of the list. And then there's a huge drop off before the next guy in terms of sheer power numbers. But you are watching 2 unbelievably great players in the middle of the lineup every day, and it is an absolute privilege. And anybody who thinks that they are not that is simply wrong. And that's just the bottom line. You need to understand that some of these guys are going to, hit 230 for stretches, or Pete's had a weird year where he's hitting 230, but he's been clutch as hell. I think his batting average right now is 232, right? And it tells some of the story, but it doesn't tell the entire story. So when you look at those guys, they are absolutely doing their job. They're driving in runs, they're hitting in the clutch, and they are being leaders on this team. That takes me to the next point, which is the kids. Everybody is clamoring for the kids, and the kids are here, mostly 3 of the 4, right? and they've already made big contributions. We saw the big hit from Vientos. We've seen big timely hits over the last winning streak from Beatty and Alvarez. And so, Ibby, when you look at all of this, it is all starting to click at the right time with all of these guys in the lineup doing their thing. All we have to do is hope that the pitching holds up its end of the bargain. I think Senga has now kind of, I don't want to say turned a corner, but I think he's kind of locked in a little bit more after 2 months in the bigs. And I think once Verlander and Max are in a regular routine, I think the top of the rotation is going to be fine. My question marks are the 4 and 5 spots, but looks like Quintana's going to be back soon. So I think this team is poised and ready to take a major, major, major step forward. Last night's loss, which happens notwithstanding.
Right. A couple things I'll just to piggyback on a couple of things that you just mentioned. Number one, with Senga, I'll throw the stat in there real quick since you just mentioned him. Seems like he's coming into his own 2 months into the season. Senga's ghost fork, as according to Matthew Brownstein, as always, 72.1 miles per hour. What is that number? That is the average exit velocity on that pitch, which is the third best in baseball. Number one being Pete Fairbanks, the slider at 67.6 miles per hour. Just to give you an idea of how well that pitch is operating the first go around in the league. We'll see what happens as he starts seeing teams more and more. They get a little bit more of a book on him. We'll see how that develops. Pete and Lindor. I bring this back to your tweets that you often put out there, talking about how, why does it feel like certain Mets fans or just people on Twitter in general have never watched an entire baseball season? It's crazy because people think that you're going to get a hit every single at bat. Like, that's not how baseball works. It is not. Is Pete Alonso ever going to hit 300 or over 300? Probably not, but I don't care because he can hit 50 home runs in a season. That's his job. Francisco Lindor, they complain about the contract. They say this, they say that. Oh, he's not doing enough. He's not. Oh, you put the guy over so much because he fields well. So what? It's like, no. He's an all-encompassing, all-around great ball player who's worth every single penny. You know why? Because it's not my money. I don't care. He's there to help my team win ball games, and he does. Okay? So I'm tired of the Lindor discourse. I'm tired of the Lindorks. I don't feed into them anymore because they're a waste of my time. When it comes to the kids, to the point you made also, this offense goes with Lindor and Pete. And when they do have their streaks, like any player in baseball can have, okay, prime Mike Trout goes through his streaks where he's not doing well, doesn't get hit every at bat. Point is, when those guys went into streaks on the down low, on the down slope, I should say, no one else around them was able to pick them up. What I'm seeing so far from these kids, from the baby vets, from the more so the Beatties and Alvarez, I think Vientos is still trying to find his footing a little bit.
Yeah, he's like 2 for 13 to be fair, but he hasn't had a ton of opportunities, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Exactly. But that with outstanding, just in general, there is more presence in this lineup, especially as some of the older guys, are starting to show a little bit more of their age, if you will, in certain spots. We're still worried about the health of, Starling Marte, what's going on, Marcana, and things like that. So seeing these guys come in and help carry, if we get to a point where Lindor and Pete start to go down a little bit, like they do with the ebbs and flows of a season, if Brett Beatty gets hot and can carry the offense a little bit, if Francisco Alvarez gets hot and carries it, like, those are great things to see. It's all about the consistency of them in the lineup, their presence in the lineup, where they're batting in the lineup. I know the lineup is going to eventually be a topic here. I know you have been talking about it nonstop on Twitter. I said to Ant yesterday, as always, everyone knows Ant Subway to Shay, I go, I don't know how John fucking does it. I don't know how he does it. I know he's got time, and when he's got the time, he's going to make sure he lets someone know. God bless him. God bless him. I just don't know how the hell he does it, because I was legit last night when you were saying those things, and I responded to one jokingly like an ass, like I just jumped in. And I was like, John, I don't scroll. I stopped scrolling, so I have no idea. So when I see response like that, I believe you, because odds are you probably are fighting someone who's thinking that this loss was like Game 7 of the World Series. Like I as in passing and as jokingly as it might be for you to say that, I at the same time, I'm like, he probably did fucking see someone say that, and that's the sad part.
Well, look, when you look at the landscape, and we can dive into a little bit of the quote unquote negative here, right? The Mets aren't going to win every game. Was that a winnable game against a beatable team? Yes, but when you look at Drew Smyly and how he's performed all season, he got absolutely bombed in his first start of the year, and I think since then his ERA is about 2.5. So Drew Smyly's actually had a very good season overall, where everything is kind of weighted down by the fact that his first start was very, very bad, right? And we also know that Drew Smyly is not the best pitcher in baseball, but over the course of his career, he has had stretches where he can be dominant in terms of shutting down a lineup for a little while, right? He befuddles people. He throws a weird curveball. They talked about it in the broadcast that, like, that's not even a curveball you would necessarily teach. It doesn't look like a wipeout pitch, but when it's on, it's hard to hit. And here we are. So when you look at it, my point is always to people that you cannot get upset over every single lineup that gets put out. You just can't, because it is a 162 game season. I said this in the video tweet that I put out yesterday. This is not MLB The Show. This is not, oh, here's where Jeff McNeil's stamina bar is, and that's how it's going to reflect on his ratings, and so that means that he can play. These are human beings who we, quite frankly, Ibby, do not have all the answers to whether or not they're 100%. Now, when you look at Alvarez, was it a little befuddling to me when I first saw the lineup come out and after a day off, the Mets were not running out their A+++ lineup? Yeah, it was a little befuddling. But when you dive deeper into the totality of the lineup, it starts to make sense. When you look at Eduardo Escobar, he has hit in this limited sample size. The more his playing time has decreased, the more productive he has become, proving that he's probably an older player who is finally giving way to father time. So being in a lineup less is actually helping him be more productive. The other thing you have to look at is that he is hitting 500 against Drew Smyly. 500 for his career against that particular pitcher. So I have no problem with him getting the start. When you look at Alvarez, now people could say, oh, it's just Buck being Buck and it's just manager speak and all this stuff. But he said now on 2 different occasions that he was a little banged up. He's been hit with some backswings. He's been hit with some foul balls, and they wanted to give him a little bit of extra time. It also makes sense to me when you have a guy like Kodai Senga and they switch the rotation around. Don't you want Francisco Alvarez catching Kodai Senga now?
Yes.
Because the talk at the beginning was they didn't want him catching him because of unfamiliarity, because he wasn't sure about the Ghost Fork, because they weren't sure how good of a defender Alvarez was going to be at the major league level. Well, as he's proved everybody, including some of the Mets brass, wrong, that they underestimated his defense, now he's clearly their number 1 guy. Gary Sanchez, and we saw it yesterday, and I was an advocate for bringing him up because Michael Perez is terrible.
Yes.
But Gary Sanchez is a bad defensive player over the course of his career. He is terrible, and it showed last night. A pass ball, 2 wild pitches, a dropped ball that should have been caught.
Just lazy,
Plenty of bad plays. You don't want him catching Kodai Senga.
No.
You also ideally don't want him catching Max or Justin, right? You want your aces pitching to your top guy. So that's already 3 instances this week where Alvarez is going to need to play. He's going to catch Senga today. He's probably going to catch Verlander. He's probably going to catch Max. So when you look at a spot where catchers don't play every day anyway, you're trying to find a spot to get Gary Sanchez in a game. Now, is that the right decision? Wrong decision? We can argue that. He's the backup right now. So he has to play. Right. Backup catchers play once to twice a week, period. So to me, putting him out there with Tyler McGill makes a lot of sense. Then you go to the Jeff McNeil part. That's the one I take issue with because I don't think Tommy Pham should be playing over Jeff McNeil. I understand that. You look at Mark Canha's numbers. He has terrible numbers against Smyly. You want to try to find a way to give Pham some at-bats. I get that, but I don't think he should be playing over Jeff McNeil. Having said that, Ibby, you do have to, over the course of a season, get these guys starting at bats. You have to get guys 2, 3, 4 at bats in a game if you want them to contribute. So do I think Pham is better than Jeff McNeil? No. Do I think Jeff McNeil can't hit a lefty? No. Do I think Jeff McNeil in this moment has been vintage Jeff McNeil? Not exactly. I think Jeff's been very high, then very low, then very high, then very low. He's been a little all over the map for McNeil. Now, I still think McNeil's great. He's one of my favorite players on the team. I'm happy we gave him the extension. No beef there. But Ibby, if you're not going to give Tommy Pham a start against a guy like Smiley, who theoretically he should be able to handle, then you're not going to ever get him a start. And I know people say, oh, they're bench players. Pham, Vogelback, they're bench players. Do you remember what it was like a few years ago when the Mets had a very set lineup and they never got their bench guys in, and then the bench guys would come up in the 8th inning with 2 guys on and have terrible at-bats? You can't run a team that way. You
can't
need contributions.
Right.
Yeah, you need contributions from all 26. So am I defending Tommy Pham? No. Am I defending Gary Sanchez? No. But you have to look, like you said earlier, about the totality of a baseball season and understand how it unfolds. And that's with regards to winning and losing streaks, like I was preaching last week. And it's also with regards to lineups. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's I understand people's, and we'll talk about maybe a little bit later in the second half where, our ideas of an ideal lineup. We were going to do a whole thing, but we'll just mention them in short. But the whole thing is, you can have an ideal lineup. I have one. I'm sure John has one as well. We'll exchange them shortly. It's like, yeah, my ideal lineup consists of the kids. It doesn't have the likes of a Tommy Pham. It doesn't have the likes of a Gary Sanchez in it. Like, yeah, you like to run out the same lineup like you would in a video game. You run the same thing out there because you have the most fun playing with that lineup. You have the most power. You like however you want to do, however you want to set it up, you can do that. But in a baseball season, there are going to be times where you do have to get some guys some run so they stay sharp, because if there's one thing that is very hard to do, not even just in Major League Baseball, just baseball in general, if you are not playing in the field and you're sitting on the bench for 4 or 5 games, and then all of a sudden you have no live reps, you got nothing going on for you, and all of a sudden you're asked to go up and hit a guy who's throwing 75 miles an hour. That's being kind in terms of like low-end baseball. Now imagine going up there and trying to hit a guy who's throwing 99 miles an hour. I understand they're professionals. I get that. I, too, am not defending or wanting the likes of Tommy freaking Pham or Gary Sanchez. Or I'm not defending. Like, it's just, this is how baseball works. This is baseball. Like, you have to get guys reps. You are a manager. You're getting all things all around. I want Mark Vientos as my DH. There's a spoiler for my lineup. There's a spoiler for my ideal lineup. I want to see Gary Sanchez shot off into a cannon. I saw one game. I see one game and then behind the plate, I'm like, I'm done already. I don't need him. Once Omar Narvaez is back, my situation, my ideal situation, it's Narvaez and it is Alvarez. That is it. I don't need Sanchez. I don't need Tomas Nido. I don't need Michael Perez. I don't need it. Okay. That's how I see. But everyone is just losing their minds over these players. And I get that we as fans sit there every single night, or for the most part, every single night, whatever it is, whatever your schedule is, you're sitting there, you're watching the games, and then you finally get a chance to see the game is on, and you're like, I wanted to watch Francisco Alvarez yesterday. Of course I did. The guy's got a near 1,000 OPS in the month of May. Of course I want to see him play. And then it's like Gary Sanchez is playing. It's like, God damn it, man. But I get it. I'm not going to lose my mind on a game on the 23rd of May. I'm not gonna go crazy. Everyone else went crazy. I didn't go crazy. I saw what Gary Sanchez did. It's like, sucks. Not ideal. Not good. Not going to be here long. Okay. And to your point before with the catching situation in general and the pitchers, there's a reason that they want Francisco Alvarez. It's clear as day to me. Yes. Clear as day why they want him. Why? Not even because he's proven that he can do well behind the plate. And the metrics show he has done a lot better than what anyone had predicted to this point. The reason they want him in the lineup is because this guy can score some runs and get us some support. So maybe we can win some ball games. That is how I am seeing why these pitchers are starting to come out anonymously or whatever it is and say, we want him to stay, we want him to be here. They want him in the lineup because he can put the ball over the fence. That's why they want him here.
Yeah, and look, let's jump into the comments because I have a lot more thoughts, and we kind of can take this conversation into a few different directions. But Keith saying everyday players need days off, bench players need reps. Chris Ferraro saying bench players do play some games in a 162 game season. Carlos Ramos saying McNeil has also been all over the batting order, which is a huge problem. This over-reliance on numbers and matchups is sickening. Look, that's something that I've said from the beginning of the season. I don't like using McNeil all over the lineup unless the lineup is producing to a higher level. If we fast forward to August and Brett Beatty is your number 5 hitter and Mark Vientos is your everyday DH and he's hitting 6th, then I don't mind McNeil hitting 2nd and 3rd and 5th and 6th and around the lineup some days because I do think he can do it. But that's in an actual legitimate lineup from start to finish, which right now, to be fair, the Mets lineup has not been. Shay saying, I want to see Gary Sanchez shot out of a cannon. Ibby quotes to remember. 2023, that's going to go in the yearbook for sure. But look, when you look at the landscape of this team right now, look, I don't like Gary Sanchez. I didn't like Gary Sanchez on the Yankees. Like from afar, like I thought he was overrated after his first season. I thought he was getting by. Like people were like, would you trade Gary Sanchez for JT Realmuto? And Yankee fans were like, absolutely not. Would you do that now? They would have done that last year, the year before that, the year before that, the year before that, the year before, every year up until Gary Sanchez's rookie year, right? They would have done it every single time. But I do understand what the Mets are trying to do with Gary Sanchez. I understand that the Mets were in a situation where they extended Nido and gave a 2-year deal to Narvaez to hedge their bets on Francisco Alvarez being ready because, like Ibby has so astutely brought up 1,000 times, 21-year-old catchers are not even in AAA, let alone in the major leagues. Most of them are in high A. Some of them are in AA, still learning their craft. So what Alvarez has been able to do is nothing short of incredible. But the Mets hedging their bets made a ton of sense. And then what happens? Narvaez gets hurt. They have to go to Alvarez. No problem there. They make him earn the role. And Ibby, that's the thing I never had a problem with. People are like, he's got to start. He's got to start. I don't see that he needed to start right away. Now that he's proven to be a good defensive player and a better high upside offensive player than anybody else they have, yeah, Alvarez is 100% your number 1 catcher. Period. End of story. But when you have then Nido go down and your backup is Michael Perez, and you really don't have, at the time that they signed Sanchez, a timetable for Narvaez's return, and certainly not for Nido because it was a strange situation with his eyes. You want to go and you want to bring in some more catching depth. And you want to bring in some catching depth that could actually provide some offense because this team proved through the first little bit of the season when Nido was your number 1 catcher after Narvaez got hurt that they are not good enough offensively to carry a defensive first catcher.
Correct.
So I understand why they did this with Gary Sanchez. Now, Gary Sanchez is not taking away playing time from Francisco Alvarez because he played 1 game when they switched up the rotation and Buck said he was a little banged up anyway. Is it a travesty that they gave their young catcher 2 days in a row off, the off day and then the following day? Ibby, they've already done stuff with Alvarez that most teams don't do. He's played day game after night game. He's played, 3 out of 4 games when 2 of those games are double headers on back-to-backs. Like, he hasn't played both ends of a doubleheader. No catcher would do that. But he's playing so much. It's okay to give him a day off. Gary Sanchez sucks. He sucks. Yeah. He's going to be off the team when Narvaez is ready. Or Nido. Whoever's ready first. Sanchez is going to be off the team. But they wanted to see if they could get a spark. They wanted to see if they could get some lightning in a bottle, and I don't have a beef with that. I really don't. Yeah, not today. If this was the playoffs, I'd be like, what are you doing? Story. How are you playing Gary Sanchez?
Yes.
But at the same token, Gary Sanchez won't be on the team at this point. But Ibby, if Gary Sanchez found his way on the team at the end of the year because he went on a stretch where he was just hitting a ton of home runs and blah, 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 and matchups dictated that Gary Sanchez should be in a lineup as a DH at least to start a game against the pitcher that he's handled well, I'm not going to throw my hands up in the air and say, what are you doing? Sometimes that's how you put together a baseball lineup. Yeah. You can't ignore Eduardo Escobar having a 500 batting average against somebody for his career. You can't.
Yeah. It's I'm not too worried. Again, it's 1 game. I don't think this is going to be something that's done in the long run. I think the idea, we both said at the time, the idea of calling up Gary before he was able to opt out was simply the offensive the offensive, I should say, the potential offensive output that he can provide, because clearly this team was looking for more offense somewhere, anywhere that they could get it.
And
And
they don't have enough power. Sorry to
right.
interrupt.
No, it's
That's
fine.
why
But
everybody
it's
wanted
true.
Beatty. That's why everybody wants Alvarez and Vientos. That's why everybody
They hit
wants
home runs.
Mauricio on the team, is to hit home runs.
Right.
Gary Sanchez, as bad as he is, he had a 203 batting average last year. He still had 16 home runs, which would have been third on the Mets.
Correct. And
Sorry.
you know, it's fine. Like, but when it comes to like this whole idea, because I know that there was discourse, and we'll go into the break right after I finish this, but I know there was back and forth with Martino and this nonsense when it comes to Alvarez and being sent down. Look, Francisco Alvarez is not going anywhere. He's not going to go anywhere. He's not getting sent down. And I'm not going to equate this to just seeing one thing, but I've said over time how not only does he look a lot more confident in the box, and I've talked about confidence in the box when it came to Brett Beatty last year versus this year, things that I've seen to an extent so far with Vientos as well. You know, the results aren't there for Vientos yet, but last year to this year looks a lot more confident, you know, different in the box. I look at Alvarez. Shout out to lfgm.train, who puts out great videos on Instagram. That's like basically like Mets cinema almost. Always posting cool things. And he posted a video of the 5-game win streak, and it showed the narratives. And it was the talking heads doing the narratives, all the stuff about Francisco Alvarez. He looks overmatched and this and that. And we come back to that Josh Hader at bat that he had when the bases were loaded earlier in the season, where he got blown away on like 4 pitches that were out of the strike zone, and he had no reason to swing at pitches, but he couldn't control himself because the game hadn't slowed down yet. And then I watched this kid over the last weekend. I look at him in the box. I'm like, this is a different hitter. The confidence is there. He belongs. He has said from day one, I'm going to make this team. I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to, to help this team win this year. Everyone thought he was nuts. We here said second half player because it made sense from a catching standpoint and all the things I've talked about with the age. He belongs here. He's going to stay here. He's not going anywhere. I'm not listening to Martino. I'm not listening to Licata. I'm not listening to anybody who has this idea, oh, he's got options. It's the baseball business part of it. Bullshit. Best players play. He's going to be here. They'll figure out the rest. It always gets figured out in the end, but he's not going anywhere. He's going to be here rest of the season.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. As long as you prove it, which he has, I put up the numbers. There's so many comments here about how he's a better defensive player than anybody thought he would be to this point. Everybody keeps talking about how he's a sponge and he continues to just absorb and work hard. I think it was Jeremy Barnes who said that he's never seen somebody just be so willing to learn the way Alvarez has been willing to learn. And look, Ibby, I understand. And I hope Douglas is joking with this comment when he says Saponaro just likes to be loud. If he sits on the fence, he can scream at both sides. Like, because I do stand by a lot of what I said. And Chris Farrar was saying LFGM train is awesome. Raf does great work, which I co-sign. Awesome. Again, it's not talking out of both sides of my mouth when I look at the entirety of the landscape. I do understand that there are some things that are contradictory, right? When you say a player, I always stand by a fact, a young player should have to earn their way onto a team. They should have to earn their way into a starting position. Yes, I get it. When you look at a guy like Vientos, they say, well, how can he earn his way on if he doesn't get playing time? It's a chicken and egg scenario. I understand that. That is not me flip-flopping. That is me acknowledging the fact that this is a difficult thing to manage your way through. And so that's why I can't get bent out of shape about every single lineup and every single move that's made in game, because there is a balancing act with these young guys. There is look, Brett Beatty, I took the Mets to task. So did you. We both thought he did everything in spring to force his way onto the team. It was clear that the Mets were not sold on Eduardo Escobar as the third baseman. Why? Because they went after Carlos Correa. If they thought Escobar was going to have a big bounce back year and be the power bat they thought they were getting 2 years ago, they wouldn't have tried to spend $325 million on Carlos Correa.
Yes.
Beatty comes out in spring training. He has the Pete Alonso spring. He forces his way onto the team, and they say, no. No one was more critical of the Mets for doing that than you and me, because we thought he earned his way onto the team in a place where there was an obvious need. 2 weeks go by, he's on the team. 3.5 weeks go by, he's the starting third baseman. So they rectified that. Alvarez was a different story. They thought he wasn't ready. They were sure he wasn't ready. He came up out of necessity. So when he got to the major league team, they were like, listen, kid, you're going to have to force your way into playing time. And then he got a little bit of a boost because Nito was not producing. Then Nito winds up on the IL. And then all of a sudden, Alvarez gets more reps. I understand nobody likes Daniel Vogelbach. I don't like Daniel Vogelbach. I get it. He's a one-dimensional player, and within that one dimension, he's also very flawed because he doesn't execute on a lot of that stuff. To me, he's no different than J.D. Davis in a lot of ways where he's meant to deliver some stuff and he doesn't deliver what he's supposed to deliver. But when I look at the move to pinch hit for him in that Vientos spot yesterday, the reason why, and everybody jumped all over this tweet, the logic in that one particular moment, Ibby, to me, is not something you could go, oh, what are they doing? Vientos is 2 for 13 coming up. 2 for 13. He had 2 bad at-bats against a left-handed pitcher where he looked overmatched and he looked out of sorts. So the Mets said, you know what? Buck said, we're going to get a guy up there who's a high on-base percentage guy, and then people all of a sudden they're telling me, oh, that means, what are you saying? Vientos can't hit lefties because he struck out twice? Look at his splits. He hits righties too. And then they're saying on-base percentage means nothing. No. I'm just looking at the fact that in that spot with 1 out, first and second, even if he walks Vogelbach, who everybody, oh, he doesn't want to swing. If he walks, Ibby, that's not a bad at bat. And what did he do? He hit the ball hard. He hit the ball deep to a spot where we saw 4 home runs go out yesterday. Yeah. He just missed it. Now, does that show for anything? People are like, well, what is that? He has nothing to show for it. No, he has nothing to show for it. That sucks. But you can't fault the logic when you look that he's a 400 on base percentage against right-handed pitching in a spot where a walk is excellent because it loads the bases with 1 out. He does have some pop, and I'm using that in air quotes because it's frustrating he doesn't swing. Absolutely frustrating. For a DH, he should be swinging more. I absolutely agree with that. But in that particular spot, that's why I didn't have a big issue with it. I don't think Vogelbach is better than Vientos. I don't think he should be getting more reps than him. But when you look at that position in the game, and then people telling me, oh, Buck just wants to punt the game away. There was a manager that was trying to win the fucking game right there.
Yeah.
He was hoping that Vogelbach hit a 3-run home run and put the Mets back in the game. He didn't. But you can't fault the logic there. Listen, if Vientos comes up and Vientos is 2 for 2 with a single and a double and an RBI and you pinch hit Vogelbach, I'm having a different meltdown right now.
Right. Problem.
But when Vogelbach or Vientos is in the game to hit a lefty and strikes out twice and doesn't look particularly good in either at bat. The first at bat, he had a couple good swings and fouled some pitches back. But he didn't really put up much of a fight. He was befuddled by the curveball. The off-speed was doing him in. Go to Vogelbach. And they're like, oh, walks don't matter. Walks don't matter. Bases loaded in that spot for Brett Beatty wouldn't have mattered. I thought Brett Beatty was your fucking savior, Mets Twitter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's go into the break.
Okay.
Let's go into the break. We're over. Let's go into the break.
Okay. We're over on time. We're going to the break. Everybody watching, it is just a 10-second
We'll catch up on the comments. We'll catch up.
Which, quite frankly, I probably need more than 10 seconds to actually exhale. It's just an ad break we need for the audio version of this show. John Sapanero, Matt Ibby Ibanez, till Mets do his part. We'll be right back. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. After a quick break, we are back with Till Mets Do His Part. John Sapanero, Matt Ibby Ibanez. Please hit that like button if you're watching us live. Of course, we're live on Twitter, live on YouTube, and YouTube is the best way to interact with the show. Your comments, questions, concerns, all that fun stuff come in real time so we can acknowledge them. Like Ibby going to take a shot on this break for Chris Ferraro. Yeah, that's possible. Also, if you can't watch us live, we understand it doesn't fit into everybody's schedule. You can watch the replay of this show whenever we are done with the show, which I feel like today might be a little bit longer than usual, quite frankly. But it lives on our YouTube channel forever. And if you can't watch the show at all, you can listen to the show starting tomorrow, all courtesy of the Chop Sports Network, wherever it is you get your podcast. Ibby, I've been yelling into the void. Keith Blacknick saying, we need to get someone to give Sap a hug. That's fair. Patty in NYC saying, I'm taking a shot. That's also fair. So your thoughts on everything I just said. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you feel?
I mean, look, I get everything that you're saying because you're speaking from a place that is not wrong. You're talking about situational baseball and wanting to take a shot on something. And sometimes, look, a manager is not always going to get it right. They're not. Like sometimes you make a call and it's not right. And we've been on the show also. Like I feel like with us, we question a lot more when it comes to the bullpen usage, a lot when it comes to Buck, more so than the lineups, because it seems like the bullpen spots, right?
You could draw a line with the bullpen usage. Like I'll never get mad at people for talking shit about bullpen usage because you can draw a line. Today affects tomorrow, affects the next day, affects the next day, affects the week. Now all of a sudden it affects the month. There's a clear line to draw for bullpen usage.
Yeah.
Guys being overused, underused, whatever it is. At bats don't work that way. People want them to, but it doesn't work that way.
Look, I understand. I shouldn't say I understand. I think I'm trying to understand the thought process of Mets Twitter, which is not the easiest thing to do. But when it comes to Vogelback, because that seems to be the ire of everybody, do I think Daniel Vogelback is the reason why this team is 25-24 right now? No, I don't. I can point to 1,000 other things. But I think the ire of people with Vogelback brings back to the point you made before. Everyone is pissed off because everyone associates a DH as somebody that provides nothing but power. They think a DH is what Pete Alonso is. They want Pete Alonso production coming from the DH spot. Or I shouldn't say the exact thing, like something similar. A guy that can put the ball over the fence once every 5 at-bats.
And they always reference the best DHs in the league, the best power bats in the league. People go, where's Big Papi Ortiz? Where's Edgar Martinez? Oh, the only
Alvarez?
2 DHs in the Hall of Fame? Those guys?
Yeah.
You know, where's Jordan Alvarez? Oh, the best pure hitter, power hitter in baseball?
Yeah. So it's I think the thing with them is they're pissed off because when it comes to Vogelback, it's as if, number one, he's very passive. That I should say they put him as a very passive approach for a hitter. They think he is walk before hit. So he's always looking up there. So that pisses them off. They want someone that's going to go up there and attack because in their eyes, a DH is someone that goes up there and is looking to hack. Okay. Situational baseball, it's dependent. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. I could guarantee you a lot of the times when Pete gets onto his streaks where he swings at the first pitch and pops up, it pisses a lot of people off because like he doesn't work a count. What's he doing? He could have
How many people up in arms a week and a half ago before Pete got into this hot streak, he was swinging at first pitches and hitting his double plays and killing every rally. How many people wanted to kill Pete that he wasn't clutch? So do I have to bring up Pete's numbers again? He has 45 RBIs, 18 home runs. It's not even fucking Memorial Day yet.
Right. So it's like, I think that because he is of that stature as a hitter, Vogelback, where it's walk before hit, it's on base percentage before, the risk of hitting a fly out. The idea is he makes his bread and butter as a guy who gets on base. Now, people, and it's hard to fault people when they say this. People get angry because it's like, okay, he gets on base, but then what? He clogs the bases. It's station to station. So it's like, how does this make this team better? We're basically becoming station to station where when you have a lineup that is not so power driven, it's power, it's power hungry. It needs more. So when he gets on base, it's like, okay, now we got to get basically 3 base hits or really shoot a gap with a double to try to get this guy to score. So I understand that thought process, and I get why analytics pisses people off to some extent, because it's like you can't win the game on paper. On paper, Vogelback, it's like, yeah, this is great, but it's like then you see him and then you see what he does on the field in terms of the base paths. You're like, kind of hinders you a little bit. I understand the anger. I'll read that in a second. I understand the anger in that sense, but it's hard to fault in certain spots. Again, we'll talk our ideal lineups. Daniel Vogelback in my ideal lineup is not present at all.
Correct. He's not in mine either.
Thought for me. He's not a thought for me because when I say DH, I say Mark Vientos. And then when you say to me, if it's not Vientos, I then say Eduardo Escobar, especially if a lefty's on the mound. Like those are the things that I've been. So it's like
there is nothing short of 3 players that I would have DHing before Vogelback. I'm with you. I would have Vientos, then I would go to Escobar, then I would go to Tommy Pham, then I would go to who needs a day off that day or a half day off in the field.
Yeah.
Give me a Beatty DH, give me an Alonso DH. Vogelback is not my DH. Yeah. So people are talking like I'm defending his presence on the team. I started that tweet by saying I don't want him on this team. But if you're not going to use him in a spot that totally takes advantage of his entire skill set the way that yesterday's pinch hitting appearance did, when are you going to use him? Now, the naysayers are going to say, don't cut him. Okay, what happens if this 2 for 13 with Vientos turns into a 2 for 25 and then a 4 for 40 and then a 6 for 45? Do you see where I'm going with this? That is possible. I understand how good Vientos can be. And there's people in the comments, Chris Ferraro, there's people in the comments, Carlos, saying, we know what Vogelback is. We don't know what Vientos is. Douglas Barnes said, why don't you give Vientos a chance to prove himself in that spot? I understand that portion of it. But when you talk about it from the other way, no one ever wants to hear that. Tommy Pham made an egregious error yesterday. Dropped a ball that I've never seen a major leaguer drop in the outfield. Everybody took him to task on Twitter. Of course, it was a dog shit play. Everybody should take him to task. But where were the same people taking Brett Beatty to task for not making that throw in the first inning that led to 3 more runs, or then making an error later in the game? Brett Beatty did not have a good defensive day at third base. I love Brett Beatty. I understand he's in the 83rd percentile of defensive third basemen since he's come up, and I understand that makes it a little bit more forgivable. But that's part of it. You have to understand that these guys are not infallible. And you have to understand that Vientos is not doing enough right now to justify getting every single at-bat, every single time, in every single moment that means something.
Yeah.
He hit a big home run that was a huge catalyst for this team. I'm not denying that. I want Vientos to DH 75, 80% of the time. Righties, lefties, I want that.
Yes.
But I think that when you look at the construction of a team in May and you have some veteran bats, it's just not going to be the case. Not until Vientos forces your hand. And 2 for 13, maybe he's not forcing anybody's hand.
It's tough. And this is where I don't want to say be contrarian, but a little bit like it's tough when you're not getting those consistent at bats to try and really prove something. So that works against Vientos in that spot. So I want to bring this up real quick because I didn't really get a chance to read it because we were going so quick. And Douglas, I appreciate you being here. And thank you. You love me. I appreciate that. It's nice to have some love. But the only thing Vogelback can do is mash. Is our DH batting first because he's an on-base machine? No. If Vogelback isn't mashing, how is he actively contributing to winning games? I guess the way I would answer that is you contribute to winning games by putting a quarter in the merry-go-round, like keeping a lineup moving. Like if you're getting on base, like that's what I would say to just answer that question, if you will. But I get it. I understand the frustration, but it's like until, and again, this goes hand in hand with what I just said, until he gets those consistent at-bats, and I want Mark Vientos to get some consistent at-bats over a span of a week so he can find his footing and be better, so then he can try and take something that we've said before, like Brett Beatty has done and Francisco Alvarez has done, where it's like, prove to me that you belong here. And then they do it. And then it's like, now they're mainstays, like they are there. Vientos needs his opportunity. So I get the frustration there. So he needs to capitalize, but at the same time, he needs to get his reps. So I'm hoping this upcoming week, he gets more playing time. Now I know I saw the line for tonight already. He's not in it, and that in itself is frustrating because I want to see him out there. But hopefully after this game, we can see him get 20 at bats in a week and see what he can do, establish that confidence, establish that consistency, so that it becomes a more of a talking point for people, because it's tough to have a talking point, like you said, when a guy goes 2 for 13.
Listen, and again, I admitted that this is a difficult, strange thing. It's a chicken and egg situation. How do you get more consistency if you don't get the at-bats? That's what Douglas Barnes is saying to my thing, because I said he has to force your hand. He says, well, how can he force your hand if he isn't in the lineup? But again, you have to acknowledge the fact that when he's been given these chances, he's 2 for 13. The Mets set him up in a perfect position to succeed yesterday against Drew Smyly, and he struck out twice. I told you we'd be having a different conversation, or I'd be arguing from a different perspective if he was 2 for 2 or even 1 for 2 with a couple hard struck balls. When you all of a sudden find yourself in a situation where you're not putting the ball in play, you're not going to get that opportunity. Buck did not defer to a veteran there. Buck was going to a guy who was more poised to succeed in that spot. And that's what I don't understand, what people don't get. People want to talk about, the only things that Vogelback does are these two things. Okay, well, with 2 guys on and 1 out and the possibility to go up there and either draw a walk or hit a home run is exactly what you want.
Carlos coming in with a comment. I'll read it. Ibby, how is a guy who's 100% dependent on what the next guy does in the order to advance a base help you by getting on base? Well, I would answer that simply by saying baseball is a game that is, like I said, quarter in the merry-go-round. Your job, what I was taught as a ball player, okay, when I started when I was 7 years old, what I was taught as a ball player, and I took this until my dying days, or my ending days into my 30s playing, right? Your job as a hitter in the box, regardless of what you can do power-wise, whatever, your job is to get on base. Your job is to make sure that you keep things going for your team. You want to create opportunity. The name of the game is getting on base. Why? Because when you get on base, you create opportunities for the next person to get a hit and score you, because the name of the game is also scoring runs. Most runs scored wins a game. So it's like your job is to freaking get on base. You create opportunity. I get that he is fat. I understand that people don't like that he is a fat person and he gets on base and he clogs the bases, but he's creating opportunity. It's hard. And I know, I think it's Rupert. Is it Rupert Holmes? No, not Rupert. Yeah. On Twitter, who's been backing you a lot on things. And he's like, you're not going to cut a guy who has a weighted runs created plus of 117. It's not going to happen. Like, I get everyone hates him, and I know I'm kind of talking both sides here, but it's more so I'm understanding as to why people don't like him, and I'm providing context as to why, but I'm also saying why I would like to see other people play as well, but Absolutely. I'm also trying to defend myself at the same time.
That's what I'm trying to do. It's almost like playing devil's advocate with your own argument, which, again, I understand sounds like talking out of both sides of your mouth. But when you look at the landscape of each decision that is made, the Mets need more power. The Mets need more consistency on offense. Daniel Vogelback is not the first problem. He's not even the second problem. He's not even the third or fourth or fifth most biggest problem on this team with regards to offense. Now, again, do I think he's one-dimensional? Yes. Do I think it would be better off if he was off the team and they could have somebody who provides a little bit more variety? Yes. But right now, he is not the problem when you have a 117 rated runs created plus. You have a 400 on base percentage against right-handed pitching. That stuff is valuable in a way to a team. Is he getting too much playing time? Probably. We can make too much playing time, but we can't sit there and debate like, this guy's fat and he's terrible and they want him off the team. That's what everybody always says. And there have been a couple good comments, which I think also lead to the ire. Shea said it. I think Chris Ferraro said it. Patty may have said it. I don't want to thumb through the whole comments, but a lot of people said part of the frustration is that we traded a good bullpen arm in Colin Holderman for him. And that's fair. I understand that. But at the beginning of last season, nobody even heard of Colin Holderman. Exactly. He was a journeyman player in his late 20s. Now, I understand he's pitching his ass off this year, and he pitched well for us, but you got to give to get. The Mets were in a desperate spot. The Mets were in a place where they couldn't do any better at the deadline than Darren Ruff and Tyler Naquin and Daniel Vogelback. And I go back to the old conversation that Daniel Vogelback, until he hurt his hamstring, was the best offensive player acquired at the deadline last year. That's not made up. That's fact. That's based on all the stats. So I don't know where else you people want to go. Not this time of the season. I don't get it. Okay, I want to put Daniel Vogelback to bed because, honestly, I'm tired of defending a player for 35 minutes that I don't even like that much. I've never in my life defended a player that I don't like that much.
It's more so it's not even that we're defending the player. I think that we're trying to understand, and we have an understanding as to why it's happening. Do we want to see other players get opportunity? Yes, but I can't fault the guy who gets on. I get he's fat. And to Carlos's point that he brought up before, Where was it? If he gets on base, if he gets on base, next guy hits a double, Vogelback gets to third, gets Thor. Oh, gets thrown out. Oh, you're saying he gets thrown out. Well, I would hope that he understands his speed. Yes, the one time he did not, and it cost the Mets that one inning a couple games back. I remember that. But I think it's also understanding what you can and can't do. And then if he gets on third, and then the next guy doesn't score him, like that's not his fault. That's on the batter that couldn't do their job to get him in. But I don't think I don't feel like we're defending the player as much as we are as defending and trying to understand the process.
Can't win. Douglas saying, why do you keep bringing up that he's fat? That's not the point. But before that, saying, is there any point here, or is it just lots of yelling hour? I know I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but because it's a head versus heart conversation. That's what it is. It's understanding what you want as a fan.
I didn't think I was yelling, by the way.
Ibby, what?
I didn't think I was yelling, by the way.
I've been yelling a lot. I'll take that on me. No, but it's understanding what you want as a fan, but also understanding that how baseball teams work and how teams are put together and how organizations are run. I want Mark Vientos to DH. Period. You want Mark Vientos to DH. Period.
I do.
Everybody in the comments wants Mark Vientos to DH. Everybody on Mets Twitter wants Mark Vientos to DH. Everybody wants that. We all want the same thing. What I'm providing, or what I'm attempting to provide as I yell and talk out of both sides of my mouth, is context as to why this isn't happening right now, and as to why it's not the most egregious thing in the world, and as to why you can't get bent out of shape every time the lineup comes out, or why you can't say Buck hates kids. Buck doesn't know what he's doing. What is Billy Epler doing? Cut this guy so that we can just take it out of Buck's hands. You don't cut a guy with 117 weighted runs created plus. You want to make an argument for cutting somebody? Cut Tommy Pham. You want to make an argument for cut somebody? Cut Gary Sanchez. There are players on this team you can cut. You don't cut players when they're producing. Now, is he producing the way everybody would want? No. But is he productive? Yes. The numbers show that he's productive. So I don't know what you want. And the numbers show to this point that Mark Vientos is not productive. Now, I know it's a small sample size. I know it's not what we want to hear. But maybe 2 for 13 is 2 for 13 every single day. Yeah. I don't know. Look, I want to bring this up because I think it's a good topic of conversation. That's a good way to end, and it's tangential to what we're talking about right now. I do have to scroll back up and find the comment from Carlos because he suggested a lineup, and I think it's worth kind of, bringing that up and talking through the lineup because it's a little out there. It's a little outside of the box. Lindor, Nimmo, McNeil, Pete, Beatty, Alvarez, Vientos, Escobar, Marte. Hear me out on Marte 9th and Lindor leadoff. There's never batting order turnover, speed all over the lineup. Your thoughts? So, look, there are some things here that make some sense. There are some things here that I would say don't make a ton of sense. The biggest one for me is taking Nimmo out of the leadoff spot. He is the best leadoff hitter maybe in baseball. So I don't think, especially as he's learned to become more aggressive in spots to drive in runs. He's also one of the fastest players on the team. I know he doesn't steal a lot of bases. It doesn't reflect in that way, but he might be pound for pound the fastest guy, which sometimes matters in a leadoff spot, sometimes not. But he draws a ton of walks. I also don't think it's a hard and fast rule for me, Ibby, but I do like the idea of breaking up left and right where possible. So to me, the tweak that I would make to this lineup is Nimmo at the top, followed by Lindor, followed by McNeil, then Pete, then Beatty, then Alvarez, then Vientos, then Escobar, then Marte. I don't have a problem with what Carlos laid out there, except for the first two. I think you're shortchanging what Lindor and Nimmo each can do by having them 1-2 rather than flip-flop the other way. Those are my thoughts. What are yours?
No, I'm with you in terms of like
overall, it's a good lineup.
Oh no, overall, it's a very interesting lineup, and I know to Carlos I know he said in the comments as well, so I'll give him some credence on this as well, talking about how Lindor's numbers when you look at him for Team Puerto Rico as well as Cleveland, you look at him from the leadoff spot, he puts up good numbers, and it's hard to debate that because when you have a player of that stature with players behind him like him at the leadoff spot, it's not unheard of, but it's a little different because again, role comes into play here, and I think Lindor fits in more as a 2-3 on this team when you have a Nimmo here. But it's an interesting lineup, and to be honest, I hope it's one day that, one that actually gets rolled out one day, just so I can see how Mets Twitter handles it. I want to see if that line gets posted one day, everyone's going to be like, what the hell is this? This is different. I would love to see that lineup happen just for the reaction of everyone else. I would, in general, I would love to watch it on a given day. It's great. I love seeing that. But I would love to see that lineup posted by the official Mets account just to see how everyone else would handle that.
Carlos saying Lindor's numbers during his career are best at leadoff. That's why I say it, John. I can't confirm or deny that. I was under the impression that Lindor has had the best numbers of his career hitting in the 2-hole, not in the 3-hole, but I don't have those numbers in front of me. So just in the interest of fairness, I might be wrong on that. But that's a good point from Carlos if it's true. I just don't know. And I'm not going to take the time certainly to look it up in this second. We can look it up after the fact, post it on Twitter, or talk about it next week. But if that is the case, and again, I'm not saying Carlos is wrong, then that is a fair argument for it. But I also think that Nimmo is probably best suited in this lineup. And I think Nimmo's best position in a batting lineup is first. But I do like, Ibby, the sort of outside the box thinking of putting a guy like Marte ninth. I know in your ideal lineup, you had a guy like Canna batting ninth, which I think makes sense if Canna's going to play. I've made the case, and I talked with Ant from Subway to Shea. I kind of got this idea from him, in all fairness, listening to his show a couple weeks ago. I would make a case if you're going to play Daniel Vogelback at any point, if he's DH.
John, don't say that name anymore.
Listen, I just think it's in the interest of fairness talking about a lineup. Yeah. If Daniel Vogelback is in a lineup, which we all know he is going to have to be, I don't care if it's 10% of the time, there are going to be times where the players who are on your bench get starting positions, right? And I think the way to maximize his skill set is to bat him ninth. He's an on-base guy who would potentially turn the lineup over. Now, the argument that Carlos brought up earlier of he becomes a logjam on the bases, that's fair, but he is best suited against a right-handed pitcher where he does have a 400 on base and he does have the ability to sometimes hit the ball out. He's best suited to bat ninth. Now, I get it. You don't want your DH hitting ninth in an ideal scenario, but that's where you would maximize his value in that spot. So I think getting a little bit more creative with that 9 spot rather than going, oh, let's put our catcher there. I think when your catcher is Tomas Nido, hit him ninth. I think when you have a Luis Guillorme day and he's playing, sure, hit him ninth. But I think when you don't have Guillorme on the team right now and you don't have a player like Tomas Nido in your lineup, I think it's really easy, Ibby, to say, hey, look, Marte's a good player, but right now not hitting the way that we want. Let's go double leadoff. There was a time you and I said on this show, listen, if you're going to move him all over the lineup, it makes more sense to put a guy like Jeff McNeil ninth than it does to hit him 7th or 8th, right? Like, I don't want Jeff McNeil getting less at bats, but if you want to use his skill set in a way and you don't want to put him in the top 3 or 4, well, he starts to get lost 6th, 7th, and 8th, where he makes more sense being your 9th batter. So, there's ways to look at this outside the box. Of course, Douglas thinks everything I say is ridiculous today. Vogelback best suited to bat ninth. I get it. You don't want your DH to bat ninth. I don't understand. I appreciate that you're watching, and I appreciate the fact that you're calling me out on everything I'm saying. I don't know how else to get through to you with this conversation. I really don't.
No, well, first of all, I appreciate that this is like legit the first time that we've had someone like really going at us like this. Episode 100, great time to do it. But I appreciate it wholeheartedly.
And I don't need this to be an echo chamber. People don't have to agree with me.
No, they don't. They don't.
And that's fine. Yeah. But I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And also, I wish I could show you, there's no notes in front of me. There's no, like, you know what I mean? We're going from our head. We're going from our heart. We're going from our thoughts here. Like, listen, I'm here behind the microphone every Wednesday. You want to find me? You want to debate with me? That's fine. Here I am. Come find me.
I welcome you to always come back, Douglas. I appreciate the engagement. I'm glad that you are listening to us. So I appreciate you. And you said that you liked me, so I'm going to hold you to that, even though it looks like I'm talking to peanut butter and jelly, if that's what that picture is. But
I could go for a peanut butter and jelly. I'm not talking shit. I want to be clear. I'm not talking shit. I'm not trying to be an asshole, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, don't watch. I appreciate. I want you to watch, and I like it when people are here. You know what I mean? Like, I get it.
He's really going after you, duh. There's no notes in front. This guy really likes you, man. This is literally what I picture the best.
Here's my
this
computer.
Is literally what
Want me to do the rest of the show like this? I'll do it. Where's the notes? Here's what's on my desk. Here's my cup of water. Here's my glasses. Here's my TV remote. I'll do the rest of the show like this if we have to.
This is what I always picture John's back and forths on Twitter like. So now it's like I actually have the theater. So I wasn't that far off what this is like. So again, thank you, Douglas, for that. I appreciate it. But no, just to throw out my lineup real quick, to give everyone an idea of what my ideal was when John sent me a text before. He's like, yo, send me your ideal lineup. And I wanted to get an idea because we were thinking about making graphics or whatever. It was Nimmo in center leading off, Lindor playing short batting second, McNeil batting third playing second, Alonso cleaning it up playing first, Beatty playing third batting fifth, Marte playing right batting sixth, Vientos batting seventh as the DH, Alvarez at 8 at catcher, and Canna at 9 for left field because I like the dynamic of Nimmo and Canna, back-to-back guys that can get on base. That was my ideal lineup, and I was upset about it. Mainly because I wanted to get Alvarez higher, but that's where I kind of shifted it. And if you said to me, hey, would you switch Alvarez and Marte in some spots? Depending on how Marte keeps going, I might actually do that. Yeah. So I just want to get my ideal lineup out there.
Yeah, I yours is very similar to mine. I would work harder. Not to say that you're not working hard. I just based on what you just said, I would work harder to get Alvarez a little up higher. I just want to see what he could do, not hitting ninth. You know, he's hit 9th and 8th a lot, and I want to see what he can do with a little bit more protection.
I get that, yeah.
And especially now is the time where you can try it. That's the thing. Like when I say early in the season, you can make these experiments, you can move guys around, you can try some wacky shit. You could give Gary Sanchez a start when you otherwise wouldn't do it. You could do that in May on a 5-game win streak against a bad team. So you could do something like that. You could turn around and say, hey, I want to go Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Alonso, Beatty, and then I would put Alvarez there. Then I would probably go then I would go Marte, or then you want to tell me, hey, let's sneak Vientos in there. I'll go Vientos, and then you could get Marte lower in the lineup. You can get Canna lower in the lineup. These are guys that are, again, I don't want to get called out for this, but there are guys that are suited to kind of hit in that 9 spot. We also have to understand that baseball has become a weird situation with this DH in both leagues, right? I think it's fair that not every team is fully adjusted to it. Not every team, teams already in the AL started to roll out different kinds of lineups. Like there were a couple teams that had everyday DHs on the tail end of the career for Big Papi and stuff like that. But a lot of other teams were using the DH as a way to get guys involved, get guys half days off. There weren't a lot of teams that are sitting there going, here's our DH, he hits third every day. There weren't a lot of teams doing that. And there are less teams doing it now. When they first brought the DH to the NL, what did everybody say? Oh man, the Mets are perfectly suited for the DH because they have Pete Alonso, Dom Smith, and Robinson Cano. That's what everybody said. 2 of those guys aren't on the team anymore. 1 of them's out of baseball. So like you can't just forecast this, boom, overnight. We figured it out. We changed it. We got it. Like, I just think that there's got to be a little bit of grace in a baseball season. I appreciate Douglas Barnes saying, love getting called out, more yelling. No, but I do think there needs to be a little bit more grace shown to early season baseball. That's, I think, the biggest overarching point, whether we're talking about lineups, whether we're talking about Vogelback, whether we're talking about a stretch that a team is on, whether good, whether bad, whether abysmal, whether somewhere in between. I just think, and that's why I said it on Twitter and I keep saying it to people, baseball takes a long time to play out. And I think sometimes you have to let some of these things play out so that we can actually see what happens. That's why I said, okay, yeah, I'll admit it's a small sample size. I'll admit that because it is, because at this time of the season and a guy comes up a week ago, everything's going to be a small sample size. Douglas saying early in the season, best time to check out the rookies. That's a fair point if you buy into that. But I think with a team trying to win a World Series this year, you have to kind of measure it a little bit up against what you think some of these other guys might do. Again, you wind up in a bad spot if you just start cutting guys loose, letting them go, and then the kids don't produce. Then where do you go?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
It's always been, and I said this from the jump, I said this from day one, I said that this team was going to be very veteran-driven. They were going to give all the veterans a fair shake, and what they feel is a fair shake. to figure out if and when they were going to call up the kids. And it's been happening. And they've been giving players fair shakes. And they're like, look, Eduardo, you're great. We love you, but it's Beatty's spot. And that's happened. Alvarez is doing his thing. Narvaez gets hurt. Other catchers aren't producing. Alvarez, you've earned it. Here's your spot. I think Vientos is in the midst for that now. Yes, he needs more at-bats. I hope he gets more at-bats. But hopefully he can do that as well and provide. What am I buying into? We'll figure that out.
No, that's to me. That comment from Douglas is to me, because he said early in the season is the best time to check out the rookies. I said, yeah, that makes sense if you buy into that. But I said it's hard for a team that's coming off 101 wins with this team trying to win a World Series to go and play all their rookies early in the season. How many teams do that? I'm not saying whether or not I would. I'm just looking at baseball history, Ibby. Who does that? Which team that won 101 games and walked to a playoff spot last year is going to turn over 4/9 of their lineup before Memorial Day with rookies, two of who had never had at-bats in the major leagues, basically, one of whom have never had a bat in the major leagues with Mauricio, and the other three who have a combined 47 at-bats. Who's doing that?
Yes, I could see his follow-up is the Braves, and yes, we know that the Braves are a loaded and stacked farm system. Yes, I do like how they integrate their players, and they've done well, and then you've also seen that Michael Harris is absolutely terrible this year.
They also let Dansby Swanson walk because they didn't need him, and now what? Now the guy that they thought
there's two sides. There are two sides. But the one thing I need to ask, and I know you're still here, Douglas, are you the guy that posted a review on our Apple account reviewing the show and talking about John screaming a lot? I want to know if that's you. If it's you, great, I found you. But I've been curious as to who posted that review, and I want to know if it was you.
This is the curiosity. This is the curiosity episode. Ibby asking all the questions live that he's always wanted to know. Hey, Grant, did you not include us because you think John's a piece of shit? Hey, Douglas, did you give us a bad review?
You gotta be confident sometimes. You gotta shoot your shot. You know.
Listen, I appreciate you straight up asking. Keith Blacknick, Keith Blacknick saying Douglas is Salicata's burner account to drive Sap crazy.
What if it is?
No, look. In all seriousness,
I love it though. It's great.
In all seriousness, we do appreciate everybody. Do appreciate the fact that people disagree. I am thick-skinned. I can take it. Disagree with me. I really don't.
Oh my God.
Douglas saying, no, I don't have an iPhone or anything Apple, but maybe I might give that guy a high five. Listen.
Here, Douglas, this is for you today. This is for you for being the troll. You are the troll king. I'm going to give you.
Why do you have a crown? What is happening to this show?
I'm going to give you, Douglas, this crown for the day because you were hilarious, and I appreciate you on this 100th episode.
Listen, I do. No, I sincerely appreciate everybody. Carlos saying, congrats on 100 episodes. Great milestone. Glad to have been here with you all for the majority of them. Love you guys and everybody in the chat. We are great LGM family. Looking forward to 100 more. No, we appreciate all that.
Thank you.
Maybe, Chris Ferraro, look, I know we have to go. We're way over time, and we're probably going to get yelled at from our podcast editors for being super long on the show, but it's cool. Do you want to really quickly talk about this Cubs series to send us off? Because the game is going to start soon. We haven't really touched on the series at large. We have Marcus Stroman going tonight against us. Anything you want to say on that?
Only thing I want to say about this series is I would love, look, last night happened, sucked, lost. McGill didn't have it. I don't think Carson's in here anymore, but Carson, I'm going to watch his video. I know he did a great breakdown talking about Tyler McGill and how his change in mechanics have really screwed him up year over year. So I'm going to give that a watch, and I want to give him his props so you guys can check him out for the Mets Pod Weekly on YouTube as well. Does great stuff. But that sucked. Game happened, whatever. Tonight, all I can say is I want to freaking dominate, and I want to score 10 runs against Marcus Stroman. I really do. Mainly because he's run his mouth so much about the Mets and them being a garbage franchise and organization, all the stuff. So I would love for the Mets to come out hot and just torch him, that would be great. But yeah, that's all I really got to say on the series. I don't think it's like this huge, pivotal, groundbreaking series. I just want to keep winning games so they can stay above 500 and keep pace, because the Braves are slumping right now. Mets are 4.5 back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game. Right now, at this point of the season, I don't think there's any point in watching the standings. It's too early. There's too much baseball left to play, but I think you want to just win more games than you lose. And I know that's like the dumbest, most reductive way to put it, but the Mets had a really bad stretch against some bad teams where they played down to their competition. They didn't win enough, quite frankly. Then they came out and they played the best team in baseball to this point in the season, took 2 of 3. They played a kind of middling team in Cleveland, but a team that does have, you alluded to some of the stars and Jose Ramirez and Shane Bieber. And, there's legitimate ball players on that team. They're underachieving a bit right now, but the Mets took care of business. They won those games. And now they've got a series where, look, the Cubs have been kind of schizophrenic too. They started off really well. Then they hit these real bad rough skids. So when I look at it, the Mets right now against Chicago and Colorado, I see a lot of people saying that some people are going to go to the game in Chicago tomorrow. I actually might go to one of these games in Denver. We'll see. I might just take a quick flight out, see the game, fly back. It's quick. We'll see how that goes, but whatever. So if you're going,
I'll be in the Delta Sky box tweeting people. Be ready.
I'll be in the Delta Sky Lounge getting free drinks just so people can hate on me more. But no, in all seriousness, right now is another part of the schedule where you should win more games than you should lose. And I think if you continue to do that through the All-Star break, you're going to put yourself in a good position. After that, they've got the Phillies. The Phillies are a powerhouse team on paper, but right now the Phillies haven't been good. Trey Turner has had better statistical numbers in the 9 games he played in the World Baseball Classic than the 40-something he's played with the Phillies. So look, it is what it is right now. I think you just need to continue to I just saw Douglas's comment, and that's fair. Sapanaro, charismatic baseball yeller. Yep. So anyway, I think you just need to win more games than you lose. I think it boils down to that right now. It just kind of play good baseball against teams that you should either play, on par with, or teams that you should beat. And right now the Mets are in the throes of a 6-game stretch where they should beat these teams. They should beat the Cubs and the Rockies more than they lose to them. They should. And we'll see a little bit of a wild card when you play in Wrigley this time of year, right? Ball was kind of going out yesterday. And then today it's supposed to be like 50 degrees at game time with the winds blowing in. Probably will be a pitcher's paradise. And then they're going to go to
Bat Vogelback. Don't forget that. Noodle Bat.
Did you say Noodle Bat because he's set? He eats a lot of carbs.
I wasn't even thinking of that, but I was just saying a Noodle Bat because he doesn't have the power.
Listen, okay. Yeah. No, and that's the best way to look at this series and the next series. I do want to shout out my partner. It took us all day to get to it, but Shay saying it, people have said it in the comments. Ibby, congrats on the QBC. Keith Blacknick is still in here. The QBC is running lunch with Howie Rose, the great Howie Rose, and my host is hosting the event. So the QBC is always fantastic. I have hosted the main QBC the last 2 years, which is usually sometime in the late fall, early winter, November, December. It's been a blast. And I also, Ibby, I don't know if you know this, but a few years ago, I co-hosted this version of the QBC, the lunch. Myself, Dennis Holden, D-Hap, was a great content producer for a long time. I think he's kind of taken a step back from that, but he and I hosted the lunch with Keith Hernandez. So Keith and Dan and everybody at the QBC do a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job. And it really doesn't matter if it's this, kind of more abridged version or the full-fledged QBC. They're a ton of fun. And if you are a Mets fan, you should absolutely freaking go because it is excellent. And you should go even more if you are a fan of this show or especially my co-host, because look, if you don't like me, I'm not even going to be there. So it's all good. You can go and you
can Douglas, if you decide to show up, I will, I'll make sure I bring the crown. I'll give it to you and I'll shake your hand for the fun that you provided us for today. But I am so thankful. I was talking with John about it before it even became official. I was nervous. I still kind of am a little nervous, but excited nonetheless. I think nerves and butterflies show that you're still alive and you care a lot. So I'm pumped up to be there, to be sharing the same room with Howie Rose and to host an event like this. I'm very excited. July 29th, I will be well prepared. Hopefully I'll be nicely well dressed as well. I'll look decent. Don't worry. It's going to be a fun time. I can't wait to get out to the Catch Astoria and hang out with you guys that decide to show up for a couple of hours, talk Mets, talk with Howie, and just overall have a great time. So again, Keith, thank you so much for the opportunity.
And all jokes aside, my co-host Ibby deserves this. It's an awesome privilege to be a part of the QBC. I've tried to get him involved in the last couple that I was doing, and unfortunately schedules didn't line up. But Ibby, you absolutely deserve this. You're gonna rock it. Don't be worried. Don't be nervous. It's going to be so much fun. And you get to talk to a legend. You get to interview him, and just it's going to be incredible. Keith's saying December 2nd is the date for the QBC, the regular QBC. So keep that in mind.
Which I'm going to try to make it to this year. I would like to.
And then Keith saying, I wouldn't have offered it to you if I didn't think you would nail it. And following it up by saying, thank you for doing this for us. So, okay, look, guys, the show, congratulations on 100. Glad I found you guys from Carlos Ortiz. Thank you. Look, guys, this episode is about 30 minutes longer than we usually go. And with good reason, because the first half was like 45 minutes. So we're kind of right on schedule in that way, Ibby. But the game is going to start soon. So I think now's the perfect time to sign off. A little bit of bonus coverage. But you know what? It's the 100th episode. And I yelled a lot, and we had a lot to talk about.
And Douglas fought; he beat the shit out of you.
We fought; it was wonderful. So, and I think talking about that stuff with the QBC and the opportunities coming up and 100 episodes, I think is the perfect way to kind of close out this particular episode. Is there anything else you have to say before we go?
I got nothing else. And to answer Carl's, I will try to wear a nice hat if that's proper for what I'm going to wear. Maybe I'll wear a nice hat. I got plenty to choose from. Maybe I'll buy a new one for you. But I got nothing else. Let's go Mets. I love Jerry Seinfeld, but I don't need the discourse on the F in there. I'll just throw that in there as one thing. We could save that. We don't have to talk about that. We're well over already. I want to just squeeze it in there real quick. I don't need talking heads like Michael K talking about the F and people getting angry over it. Look, it's forever LGM. LFGM is a fun thing to say when you're like really excited, but we always know it's LGM. But don't make an entire thing over one word. We say it enough on here. We try not to say it too much, but we say it enough from time to time. Don't make an entire thing about it. Baseball is fun. Let people have fun. It's not supposed to be so tied up like people think it's supposed to be. No, LGM. Let's go Mets.
It's also, I'll just piggyback with my final thought. It's also not 1957 anymore. It's 2023. People curse. I understand.
You think the Mick wasn't cursing? Come on.
Well, listen, out loud. You know what I mean? Like for the people to hear. Like I understand there's still kids there in the stands when he did that and all the stuff. But the thing is, it was authentic. It was in the moment. It was filled with pride. Like when Big Papi did it a couple of years ago, and I'm not equating the situations, but, after the Boston Marathon bombing, when he was like, we're Boston fucking strong or whatever he said, like, listen, sometimes there's an outburst. There's a verbalization where it becomes appropriate. And again, I'm not equating the two situations of a big walk-off win to like what the Red Sox mean to the city of Boston after a tragedy. It's just sometimes you can't nitpick what people say and get all up in arms about it because, come on. And the stuff with Jerry Seinfeld sounds real weak. It's kind of reminds me of like when Will Smith said he didn't have to curse in rap records. And it's like, dude, just don't curse. Like Jerry Seinfeld doesn't curse in his act. Good. You know what? A lot of great comedians do. Bill Burr and Anthony Jeselnik and all these like people curse in their act.
That Will Smith reference, I love that because I just think of the Eminem reference shortly after that, which is always great. Will Smith don't got to cuss in his rap to sell records. Well, I do, so fuck him and fuck you too. Yeah, always been great.
It's always absolutely great. Killer. Anyway, guys, that's our keep saying no F-bombs or black jerseys.
Fair. I will stay clean and I will not wear my black Beltron jersey, Rael. I will not wear my black Beltron jersey. Don't worry.
But you can wear hats. He did say it earlier that hats are acceptable.
We'll see what I'm going to wear. I don't know what I'm going to wear. We'll see.
Anyway, guys, this has been an absolute blast. Seriously. It has been the super show for 100 episodes. Thank you to everybody who was active in the comments. Thank you for everybody who has made 100 episodes absolutely possible.
Thank you so much,
doing
everybody.
This. We're going to try to do 100 more, 200 more, 1,000 more. Who the hell knows? We're going to just keep doing the show because we love it that much. We love our New York Mets. That said, we will see all of you guys next week. Hit the thumbs up before you get out of here. Help the algorithm. Ibby has a crown for some reason. I'm going to talk to him about why off air. We'll see you guys later.